Hello, and welcome to the Inside EVs podcast for July the 15th, 2022. This is episode number 119. On today's show, we'll be talking about the reveal of two Hyundai N brand concepts, the official debut of Hyundai Ioniq 6, and a massive expansion of the EVgo network. I'm Dominic Ioni, Inside EVs forum moderator and Inside EVs editor. Joining us today is Tom Rico Suave Malagni, Inside EV's editor and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have the magnetic Mr. Martin Lee from the EV News Daily podcast, which is available on all the best podcast platforms. And of course, the affable Kyle Connor joins us from the majestic, practically palatial halls of the European offices of Out of Spec Studios, where he produces high voltage videos for a growing number of YouTube channels. He is not actually with us at this very moment, but he should join us in 10 or 15 minutes. He's stuck in German traffic, apparently. Okay, so before we get going, I'd like to ask that you please subscribe to the channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up button and ring that bell icon for notifications. So you'll know immediately when a new video is published on our channel. If you're watching us on Twitch, you can also ring that bell icon for notifications. All right, so with that out of the way, welcome everybody. Great to see you all this morning.
Hey guys.
Good morning.
Bom dia to our viewer from Brazil, Bonima, this morning in the comments. So let's see. So we're going to do things a little bit different today. We're going to start with the news and then get to what we've been driving and experiencing this week. And maybe we'll even try to cut it a little bit shorter. I know we went super long last week, so we'll try to make up for some of that and keep it under control. Right. So the big news of the week might be the reveal of two Hyundai N concepts, along with news that the Ioniq 5N will debut in 2023. So in case you didn't know, N is the performance brand for Hyundai. So I don't have a whole lot of notes written out, actually none. So because I had I had a show last night. I did a little oops, we got something else in my ears. Did a little songwriters circle and around kind of thing. So I was with two other performers and we just, each did a song for a few hours. It was pretty great, but it took a lot of time. And so I have not a whole lot of prep. So anyway, so this, I don't know if, so did you guys see this news at all, Tom?
No.
Okay. So
I've been busy driving my truck. Give me a break.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear about that. That's gonna be cool. So there's not a whole lot here. There's it's two concepts and the news of the Hyundai Ioniq 5N coming next year. So one of these is they call it the RN22E, and it's actually like the Ioniq 6 with a big wing on it. And Martin's pulling it up here so we can take a look at it. So this is the Ioniq 6 that just officially debuted as well this week, and we'll talk about some of those numbers in a bit. But for whatever reason, they decided to call it something totally different. It's still the same electric platform, but they've tweaked a lot of things on it. There's a little bit of treatment to the headlights. There's more grill area in the lower part of the front, and I think there's also an air curtain on the side so to funnel more air to the wheels. And I think on the just past the rear door there, that sticks out a little bit. I think that's a little bit different from the regular one as well.
Yeah, looks like it.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of tweaks and things, but basically it's and I imagine they've pumped up the power too, so it's it's got the same output, I think, as the whatchamacallit, the fast
Kia
version of the Kia
EV6
EV6
GT, not the GT line, but the GT,
right, which hasn't been released yet. But that's the performance version of the Kia EV6, which of course sits on the same eGMP platform as the Ioniq 6, or in this case, the RN22E. I'm not sure why they call it that, but it kind of tells us that this is probably something that's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to look this wild because this is still like a concept. Maybe they're just going to slap a spoiler on the back of the Ioniq 6 and call it a day. But I kind of suspect they're going to give it a little fascia treatment. Kyle, I'm stuck in traffic. I'll be there soon. All right.
Yeah,
means-
these N cars are the obvious next step for Hyundai. Our sister site motor1.com had some Nurburgring YouTube video footage maybe a week ago of the Ioniq 5 pounding round the Nurburgring, and it looked pretty stiffly sprung. It didn't look like it was the road-going car. It was covered in camo, and so it's it's the obvious thing for them to do next is to take the EV6 GT and give it that level of power. Does an Ioniq 5 or even a Kia EV6 need 500 brake horsepower and 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds? Well, it doesn't need it, but if it wants to hold a torch to the Tesla equivalents that have always been focused on straight line performance and those stats, then if you want to play with that, then you've kind of got to go to that area. But how many they'll sell, well, that's a different matter.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't sell a lot of them, but I like that they're doing it because I think one of the criticisms that people that were, say, petrol heads had with electric cars is they're going to make driving boring. Even okay, they go great in a straight line, and they've got a lot of power and torque. But are the manufacturers now going to make vehicles just boring because now they, instead of you being connected to your vehicle, it's really just for transportation, for efficient transportation, and that's all cars are going to be anymore once we transition to electrics. That's why I like seeing things like this and what Ford did with that. Remember, they made the GT 1400, or I forget the exact name. It's showing that the OEMs are still going to play with these cars, to massage them, to make them fun, to make them exciting, to give us something that we can aspire to and say, wow, look at what this thing can do. Now, of course, they're not going to make a lot of them or sell a lot of them, but I'm happy to see that they're not just giving in and saying, okay, so cars are really just going to be toasters that get us from point A to point B. No, we're going to make them fun. We're going to make them exciting. We're going to make cars that are maybe out of reach for the average person, but for somebody, some young kids to put a poster of it up on his wall because it's such a cool car. And I think that's where this kind of falls into.
And that's, if you think about the aspirations of the cars that you want to get into, in terms of my getting into car era. So I was born 78. So I'm guessing getting into cars at like 14, like 12, maybe like early 1990. So on my bedroom wall, or, in the magazines that I would let the page linger a little bit longer, it would have been, for me, it would have been fast Fords. So it would have been things like Ford Sierra Cosworth, so Ford Escort Cosworths with like a massive barge rear wing that you could hang off of, those kind of things, because you might never see one on the road, but maybe you'd be watching some, before media satellite TV coverage, you get 20 minutes of rallying as part of a sports show on one of the 3 channels that we had, and you'd see these insane road cars, rallying through the Welsh forest or something, and you'd get goosebumps with that. So it's so amazing that they're doing this with electric cars, and hopefully the next generation of kids coming up that will never, ever learn to drive in a combustion car, let's face it, they'll learn to drive in an EV and only ever drive EVs, can have that same experience of dream cars. And like the combustion stuff, I guess it was things like, a Countach or something that I'd had on my bedroom wall and be like, wow, one day that'd be amazing. And it's kind of how you get older and change. Like, no, I couldn't imagine owning one of those, but it would be so cool to have that range of cars that are really idolized.
So Hyundai is calling these things ruling labs, which is kind of, I guess they're using it for development, I guess still. It says it's Hyundai Motors ruling labs are where it tests and verifies the company's advanced technologies to apply them to future production models. So they're saying that what they've learned here, what they produce here, is going to be in future production models. And speaking of which, so they say that they're going to have the Ioniq 5N will debut next year. And so one of these concepts is based basically on that, but for some reason, it's a high performance hydrogen fuel cell hybrid model inspired by the Hyundai N 2025 Vision Gran Turismo and the Hyundai Pony Coupe concept from 1974. I don't know if you can pull up a picture of that one, Martin. The
N
version. Vision 74, they call this one. This is the one that's based on the Ioniq 5. And this is this is pretty interesting because they've taken the Ioniq 5, which I think we all here we really like. It's an interesting looking car, and they've just I really like what they've done to it. It's or the regular Ioniq 5 is like this low count polygon thing going on with a lot of flat plain panels. This thing's got the back haunches around it, the front haunches around it. It still have some of those flat planes in there, but it looks like they've added like I don't know the Back to the Future car melded with the Ioniq 5.
It's like it is like a DeLorean. I mean, it's like an Ioniq 5 that's been sat on.
I mean, I don't see a
80s retro like the Ioniq 5. They have that worked into that for sure.
Yeah,
right. But that looks pretty amazing. I think. I have a feeling that they're not going to go this far out when they do the Ioniq 5N.
No. It'll be an Ioniq 5, but a bit quicker.
I wonder if they'll even stick a wing on it.
No.
No.
Okay. No. Well, there won't be a wing on the Kia EV6 GT, will there? So.
Well, the Kia the Kia EV6. I was going to say the Ioniq 6 comes with 2 wings already.
yeah, but people don't like the look of them, though. That's the problem.
Right. Yeah. Actually, I was watching the Ioniq 6 a walk around video from TFL EV, their EV channel, and Roman pointed out that to his mind, the back of the regular Ioniq 6 it kind of reminds him of the Infiniti J30. I don't know if you could think of what that looks like but I think he had a good point. It's like just sloping rear end in the back with a kind of a narrow spoiler.
Yeah. This thing is way more DeLorean than the new DeLorean is a DeLorean.
Right? That's true, right?
Yes.
That's a good point. It's got those massive air intakes on the back haunches too, which I believe is probably for the hydrogen fuel cell to bring in air for I don't know why. Hylorian Alain Emoyet says in the comments he calls it a what was it? A Hylorian, yes. A hybrid between the DeLorean and the Hyundai. I'm trying to pronounce Hyundai better. It's Hyundai. With that,
it's like Sunday. It's Hyundai. That's how That's how Hyundai of North America told us to pronounce it. Hyundai.
But I was listening to the presentations this week, and they were all calling it. They put that little Y in there. Hyundai. Some of them are like sliding that in there. So I think in native Korean, there's a bit of a you can hear it, but
yes, there is. I'm just going by what they officially told us to call it in North America. That's what Hyundai said.
And we're joined.
Look at Kyle out in the
joined by
German forest.
That's right, out in the German forest. Absolutely.
How are you guys? Are you outside?
Are you green screening some back?
No, it's legit. It's like a little pavilion thing.
Oh my God, look at that!
Yeah,
it's so cool.
Man, that totally looked like a green screen.
No, not a green screen.
You got your lighting is perfect.
What is green back there? So
I'm in a little office with a light here, and your lighting is way better than mine. That's cool. That's wrong. All right. So I don't know if there's anything more we need to say about Kyle, did you see the two Hyundai concepts?
I love how you say Hyundai, but yes, I have. And it's something different every week. It's great. They look pretty cool. The hydrogen concept on one. And what's interesting is I was talking to my friend Drew, who owns Martian Wheels, about hydrogen. And while it's kind of silly compared to battery electric today, at least, we think that there could be a real serious application for lightweight sports cars, because you don't have to carry around this massive battery pack filled with cells and deal with charging times. You can actually just put some tanks and convert it to power. So it's an interesting concept, maybe better for a Miata type vehicle or something like this. I think, that thing looks amazing. The Ioniq 6, I was just with in person, actually. Don't really love how that one looks.
All right. Randy suggests that you show us a squirrel to prove that it's not a green screen.
Oh, I have my friend's dog here too. I can show you. See, we have a real dog.
Hey.
Awesome.
Yeah, nice.
Right on.
There's something that in real life. I mean, I've watched the videos as well, which is weird because we'll talk about the official unveiling of the Ioniq 6 when all the YouTube videos are out already several weeks ago, but that's a strange unveil that they've done. But either way, even in video, when you get lots of different angles, I mean, and I feel bad saying this because clearly you don't get to be Hyundai's chief designer without being really good at your job. You don't get to be a designer at any big automotive company without being very good at your job over a long time. And then some idiot on a podcast comes along and goes, "Oh, I don't like the back end of it." But
Exactly.
but I don't like the back end of it, you know. So oh man, I feel bad because someone's put their heart and soul into that, but there's something saggy and droopy and
Right. I mean, it's not. It doesn't. I'm hoping it's better in person.
I know, Kyle. You've just seen it, Kyle.
Yeah, so I was just with two of them. One was like an aero spec. One was like a really nice spec with the big wheels. And you know what? Black is probably the best color for this because it hides a lot of the shapes. But even then, I just wasn't into it. Now, the big thing is here, like technically speaking, the car is still going to be massively impressive. This is definitely going to be more efficient than Ioniq 5. It should be a much better overall package.
It definitely. So this week was the official debut. So they showed us the design and had even a few videos of from different outlets going around and going through the inside of the car and the exterior design. And actually, I just mentioned that TFL EV channel video. That's actually really worth, if you're interested in the Ioniq 6, really worth checking out. It's like an interview with the designer, actually chief designer, and he's extremely passionate about it. And he goes over the car. I forget how long it is. I think it's like a 15, 20 minute, 18-minute video or something. Anyway, it's really great because it starts off like a slow burn and it picks up and he really gets into, he's quite enthusiastic about the design and he's very good at talking about it in easy to understand terms and, explaining where it's coming from with everything. And it kind of, even just watching the video, I just felt better about the car, even if I have some reservations about how the way it curves down in the end. But it's a small thing. But we did get all the official numbers this week. So we know that the 2024 Ioniq 6 will have two battery options, a 53 kilowatt hour standard battery and the 77.4 kilowatt hour long range battery. Those are also offered in the Ioniq 5. Of course, in the Ioniq 5 in America, at least, that small battery is only on the lowest trim, right? I believe I have that right.
Yep. So you can only get that in the SE with rear wheel drive. No up options on the small one. They really don't want to sell the small battery in the US.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure why they brought it here at all, really, but I guess it helps them put out that low base, starting at price. Right. So that's but the thing is, this is so it's got the same size battery as the Ioniq 5, but it's got a better profile. I think it's a 0.21 coefficient of drag, which is super low. That's like almost Lucid Air territory, right? Or Tesla S. Is the Tesla Model S Plaid also
We're
right down there?
scratching the bottom of the surface. This thing is slippery.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so it gets a lot more range. So it's they're telling us it gets, what is the number here? I think it's in our headline. Yeah, 379 miles of WLTP range. I think in real world, I think we're probably going to see 350. I think, does that sound good, Tom?
I would think so but here's the thing: you can't attribute all that to aero.
Right. No, it's not.
They have to have made significant gains in powertrain efficiency in order to achieve that much more 25% more range than the Ioniq 5. And that's one of the things that, if you remember, before the Ioniq 5 came out, we talked about it here on the podcast. We talked about it a lot of places. And, oh, wow, I can't wait till this vehicle comes out because Hyundai is so good at efficiency. And, the original electric Hyundais that came out were like amazing. It was the first car that Kyle and I ever 70 mile an hour range tested that exceeded its EPA combined range rating. And so we were so excited. Then the Ioniq 5 came out and it was kind of, the efficiency is pedestrian on that. It's nothing special. And I think we're just like, wow, they lost their mojo. Or, well, the only reason why the other vehicles were really efficient was because of their shape and they were slippery and light. So they don't really have any special sauce Hyundai. It was all just packaging. But now, if they can bring this back and regain that, then okay, I think me personally, at least, are going to look at them and say, okay, they've righted the ship and they've made this thing super efficient. Because if it can get that miles out of that size battery, that's a significantly more efficient vehicle. Yes, the shape has something to do with it. It's much more sleek than an Ioniq 5. That I'm not saying that that's the you can't discount that, but it can't tell the whole story. They also had to make improvements in powertrain efficiency.
Yeah, they said during the little press conference briefing with the press a couple days before the reveal or the official launch, they said the motors have winding improvements, and some of the electric conversion components are more efficient, improved, and then also the switching from all-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive, they've made some improvements, efficiency gains there as well, just in when and how they switch from all-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive. So yeah, those so they have some gains there as well. It's not all, as you say, just aerodynamics. So
yeah, because at low speeds, like the city EPA range rating would be very slightly affected by aero. It's that and if the combined EPA range rating is that much more, or any range rating, that has to factor in. The city plays a big role in it. I mean, for crying out loud, my F-150 Lightning, the city EPA range rating is 350 miles. So it at low speeds, aero plays very little role.
Right. So the Hyundai Ioniq 6, it's got a 0 to 60 of 5.1 seconds before you get into the performance version. So that's plenty quick. What else is there? It's got an electric active sound design, so it makes artificial sounds. You can see that we're showing the interior now. I like the interior. It reminds me of like 80s Miami Vice themes with some of those colors, pastels, and even the shapes. Really, it's got that really kind of blocky 80s thing going on in my mind. And they're not going to be built in the US. They're only going to be built in South Korea. So I don't know if they're going to do the same kind of volumes with this as they are the Ioniq 5, but I guess we'll have to see.
Depends on price, doesn't it? Because they've done, it hasn't got a huge premium look to it. It's clearly a very, very nice car. EVs in of themselves are more premium. If you look at the pricing of the Nissan Ariya, that's premium pricing for a Nissan. And they're, things like the shut lines on the doors. They haven't gone with frameless doors. They've gone with regular doors to keep the costs down, probably, and maybe to help aero as well. But then you've got the kind of a real horrible shut line that runs along halfway around the roof line. And there's things they've done that are clearly based on cost that you would think, oh, hopefully that means it's going to be a cheaper car. But I can't see that happening. I can't see any Hyundai on this platform, let alone the Ioniq 6, being even reasonably affordable, just because of how premium EVs are before you get into shortages and semiconductors and supply chains driving up prices and things like that. So I can't see this being. I don't think it's going to surprise anyone. Is what I'm trying to say when you go to buy one.
Right. So I don't know if we want to say anything more about that. We're trying to keep the show tight today. So I think we should move on to the next thing. I don't know. Anybody have any objections?
Move on.
Okay. So last night, the Mini Cooper SE convertible prototype broke cover, I guess we could say. We have a first drive on Motor One. It's a Mini Cooper with no roof, and Mini's been making convertibles for quite some time, and I believe their German market is really big on convertibles. Actually, Kyle, they say like 20% of their gas-powered Minis are convertibles in Germany. I thought that was a pretty big number.
I believe it. You see Mini convertibles everywhere. Minis are just popular in general here in Germany. It's got to have been the most. It feels like Mini when it launched in the US. We used to see them all the time in that early R53 generation, and then the R56s. They were everywhere. Now, no one buys them in the US anymore, and they're becoming much more popular, at least still popular here in Germany.
Jordan Schaefer, who I believe Kyle?
I believe I know him too, unfortunately.
Is he right there across the table from you?
No. He's actually back closer to Munich at the moment. I'm on the other side of Stuttgart.
Okay. I just want to go to Europe so I can say I'm on the other side of Stuttgart. Just so I can put that little accent thing in there. Anyway, so but they're not. This is like a concept. They're not actually going to build a convertible of the Mini Cooper SE in this generation, but they are saying that there's a very likely chance that we'll see an EV convertible with the next generation. So, and that's going to be great actually, because I think the next Mini is going to be a lot better. So this Mini is based on the powertrain is based on the BMW i3, which is just officially gone out of production. We have something on that in our show notes. Yes. Yeah, they made 250,000 BMW i3s, and that production came to an end this week. So now we're looking forward to the next iteration of the BMW Mini is owned by BMW. So it's going to probably have a borrowed powertrain from BMW in the next one, but the batteries will be a lot better. So this has what's the range on this, Tom? About 130 miles or something? 40?
The current one is 114, I think, the EPA range,
Is it that
combined
low?
range rating. Yeah.
Okay.
It was 109 when it first came out, I think, and they like squeezed like 4 more miles out of it.
Right.
So yeah, it's pretty low. I mean, we barely broke 100 in our 70 mile an hour range test. So it's a city car. It's not meant for road trips. It's meant for tooling around, running errands, and for a lot of people, it works. I know people love to put down low range EVs, but people that live in urban areas that still want a car. A lot of people don't have cars in urban areas, but people that do want a car, something like this works for them. And I know plenty of people that have the SEs and love them, and they suit their needs just fine.
Right. I think this is very similar actually to my little Chevy Spark EV, in that it's like small and super nimble and fun, just fun to drive. It just feels good. And the Mini probably feels a lot more substantial than my Spark EV, which counts for something.
Mini could make this and charge whatever they want for it, and they'd sell all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't Mini make this? It's not that hard. It's not that hard.
I think the car only has a couple of years left in its development, and I think they want the next one to have. So if you have a convertible, I think you want to have enough range. I think you need 200 miles of range for a convertible. Just so
BMW are so looking to 2025 and their new class platform and the new cylindrical cells they're going to move to, and BMW they're doing what they've got to do for today, because we know the iX is fabulous and the i4 is brilliant. But still, they could be doing so many more interesting things, but they're just they're feeling their way towards the middle of the decade. And that's when I think they'll unleash a lot more, because they can do it with better margins and more innovation and things like that. The battery costs will come down with scale. But what a shame they're not making this.
I agree. But, one of the things that you have to understand, and I think most people do understand this, so I'm probably preaching to the choir, is that these companies are there to make money, and to return a profit for their shareholders. And, over the course of the last 7 or 8 years, all the OEMs have had internal struggles on when do we go all in on EVs. I think most of the companies knew this was going to happen. We were going to transition, but when do we do it? When do we maximize profit out of ICE and then transition? BMW really waffled on this back in the early, 2006, 2007, 2008. They decided we're going to go all in. Then they pulled back around 2014, 2015. They said we were too early. The market's not ready for this yet. Let's make the plug-in hybrids for another full cycle, which is 3 to 5 years, and then we go all in the early 2020s. By 2025. Our whole portfolio is electric. So, it's not as big of an advocate as I am for electric vehicles, and the fact that I think they're better vehicles, and I think we need to move in that direction as far as reducing carbon emissions and everything. From a business standpoint, they may have made the right decision to do this, to not, flood the market in 2018 with battery electric vehicles when a large segment of the population just wasn't ready for them.
Right. I think the jury's still out on who moves had the right timing for this.
Well, that's a really interesting point, because we saw it's not on our running order but I thought that was interesting that Volvo actually pulled out of the European car makers lobbying group called the ACEA, of which everyone's a part of. But Volvo withdrew from that this week because they said it wasn't moving quick enough. Now it's chaired by BMW's what's Oliver Zipser, what's his title, chairman or CEO, but
Oliver Zipser.
yeah,
Right,
Oliver
isn't it?
Zipser. So that there will be a large part of the European car making lobby, which is, you know, led by the Germans, who want to go gently, not too fast, not too slow. And Volvo pulled out of it, citing lack of ambition, moving too slowly, don't want to be part of a lobby organization that talks out of both sides of its mouth, that says, hey, we want to go EV, but also meanwhile is lobbying governments and EU lawmakers. Yeah, but not too quickly, right? Don't make sure we can still make combustion cars, because that's what we want. So interesting that they withdrew their membership and they followed Stellantis out of the door.
Have you
Stellantis-
guys seen the ads this week from Volvo? They've started to roll out in the US. Barton, you may not
Really?
have seen this. They're
No.
all anti-EV ads.
What?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's
What?
so wild. It is showing, okay, my phone is dead. EVs suck. You got to wait for them to charge. Drive a plug-in hybrid so you can use combustion. That's the whole point of these
Oh
ads.
my
is
goodness.
infuriating.
Oh, the Toyota book of electric vehicle marketing.
What?
So-
That's crazy. Holy moly.
So while we're talking about this, I'm also showing on the screen, there's the Polestar 02 concept, which is part of Volvo. And they were just saying this week, what were they saying? Right, the CEO wants to put it into production. And it's easier said than done. They're so like kind of teasing us with that. Are we going to get this thing or not? It's like the most incredible looking. I don't know. I love this thing. It looks pretty dang sweet. And we're talking about, you know, electric convertibles. I think we might
They
see
just
this.
need to make it look like that and put the cool Öhlins suspension on it. Screw
Yeah.
the drone thing that comes out of it, but this
Right.
is just one beautiful package. And with the roof on, it looks like a 370Z, or like, you know, if you look back at some of the classic JDM cars or Japanese cars, I guess if you're not in the US, just awesome design.
Right. Actually, that roof kind of just reminds me a little bit of Koenigsegg's roofs a little bit too. I don't know if you can see that at all, but
100%.
yeah, that's man. If I'm gonna, yeah, this would probably be a lot more expensive, I think, to buy than like a mini convertible when it actually comes out. But
A little bit.
I think it would be so nice to see. Anyway, so let's stop that. And okay, so let's move along to something else then. Right, other big news. This is a pretty big deal yesterday. Hopefully you heard about this, Tom. General Motors and Pilot General Motors EVgo announced a big coast-to-coast EV fast charging network expansion. So we know that GM has partnered with EVgo in the past, and you know GM has invested in a bunch of money, and EVgo is supposed to expand their networks. They said they were going to focus on the inside cities, like urban environments. But now it looks like they're going to do a cross-country, coast-to-coast thing as well. And I don't know. They plan to install some 2,000 charging stalls powered by EVgo Extend, which I guess is the EVgo branding for their cabinets or their stations. But they will be co-branded with GM and at Pilot Flying J or just Pilot locations. So like kind of like truck stops, I guess, or fuel stops along interstates. So that's kind of a big deal. That's like a direct competition to what's that? Electrify America. So I don't know. What's your take on this, Tom?
So, I mean, it's great, but let's face it, GM has said multiple times it's not their job to create like, a coast to coast, charging network. They've said, we don't do gas, so we don't do electric. So before we give them all the credit in the world, and it's great this is coming. I mean, this money is going to be federal money. This is they changed their tune and decided to install a coast to coast network when it wasn't going to be their money, basically. So before we give them a ton of credit, this was going to get installed with the federal infrastructure dollars, whether or not it was branded GM or not. That said, good move. It's needed. Hopefully, the fact that they got involved in their new Ultium battery packs can charge at such a high rate is part of the reason why they're saying all of these chargers are going to be 350 kilowatt. That's from what I understood. it's not going to be one at a location like Electrify America has and 6 150 kilowatt. It sounds like they're all 350, unless somebody else read something differently. Is that how you've understood it, Dom?
I'm saying chargers will be capable of delivering up to 350 kilowatts, and there's a little asterisk on this diagram. I'm just trying to read the fine print. Actual charge times will vary based on vehicle capabilities and settings. So, sure.
Yeah. There's always that
I mean,
disclaimer
maybe.
there because the disclaimer usually says, well, your car has to be able to accept it and the temperature has to be right and all that stuff. But from what I understood, all of the chargers will be 350. So that's great if that's happening. And hopefully that might have been what part of GM's role in here, saying, look, our Ultium packs are going to be able to accept 300 kilowatts. So we want to have all of these chargers that rate. Maybe if those dollars were grabbed by somebody else putting this together, would have said, no, we could do 150s and we'll throw a 350 here, sprinkle a 350 here and there. So in that regard, it might be good that GM was part of this. And good on them. I don't mean to be too critical of them, but I've heard them say multiple times over the last 5 or 6 years, it's our job isn't to install the infrastructure. Our job's to make the cars. And now all of a sudden there's this giant pool of money available. And, oh yeah, we're going to do a coast to coast network. GM's right on. So, I just temper my enthusiasm for giving GM credit for this is what I'm saying.
Right. I do like that they've recognized. So in my mind, I think like, charging networks represents a huge opportunity, like advertising, like there's a bunch of mind share. When people think of charging, what do they think of now? They might think of Electrify America, but it's still kind of up in the air. So if someone came up with a strong campaign, they could, like, when people think of charging, they think, oh, let's Kleenex. It's like the Kleenex of, we don't say tissue, we say Kleenex. When Kleenex is a brand, it's not the actual thing. So anyway, I just think we need to go to the Ultium station, to fill up our thing. I don't know if GM's, I don't know what they're, how they're going to, run that campaign, but I don't know. Anyway, so 500 Pilot and Flying J travel centers. That's a lot of centers and a good coverage. 2,000 stations. That's up to maybe 4 or more stations per location. So okay, it's a start, but it's good to see it in so many, 500 different locations, and that's besides the Electrify Americas. And I guess they need to, if they really want to secure their position in the market, they just need to be reliable, because that's where a lot of people have issues with Electrify America and reliability, and it has to, people count on them working. So they really need to be, 99% uptime.
Yeah, and another thing, Dom, most of these pilot centers are on very large pieces of property. They have real estate, so they have room for these stations. Make them pull through. You've got to be able to accommodate trucks. So hopefully they're smart enough to know. And you would think GM would, because they're coming out with the Silverado, they have the Hummer. They have to be able to accommodate vehicles with trailers. And most of these Flying J, these pilot auto centers, have room to accommodate that, so they can do it.
Anything built with the federal money has to have a 97% uptime, which still allows like 13 days or whatever of the year for it to be down, which is still not right, but at least it'll have a minimum requirement.
Right. So just a couple of things to hit really quickly. I just want to mention before we get to what we've been driving. So Geely, we were talking about them last week a little bit. So Geely unveils its Radar Auto RD6 electric pickup and may bring it to the US. So Geely is like the huge Chinese automaker that owns like Volvo and Polestar and Lynk & Co. Zeekr is another brand they have. They have a bunch of brands. The London Electric Vehicle Company is theirs as well. So anyway, they have this little pickup truck thing they showed us off, and it's like nice. It's like the right size, I think, for a lot of people who want like a small pickup truck. And they might bring it to the US. I just thought we mentioned this because it's kind of interesting looking, and also at the same time mention that Ford has trademarked its Maverick Lightning and Ranger Lightning names in Europe. So there could be more electrification coming to those vehicles, which are smaller pickup, small and medium-sized pickup trucks. So we can see some of the more electrification Ford trucks coming, and I just wanted to mention that. And right, and moving on to the next thing, Panasonic has a new U.S. battery plant that will be built in Kansas, like a $4 billion plant. That's huge, where they're going to make the 4680 cells like this and probably sell them to Tesla, which is the biggest user of cells in the country at the moment. Especially 4680 cells are the only users of 4680 cells. So that's a big deal, I think, in Kansas. A little bit of an odd location, but it's hard to cite gigafactories like this. There's so many, like the power requirements and then the workforce requirements. There's a whole lot that goes into finding a good site for a gigafactory.
Tax
Yeah,
breaks.
what it comes down to is who gave them the best deal.
Yeah.
That got
Well,
put in the place where they got the most tax-free incentives and all kind of sweetheart deals.
Right.
I'd love to see the real back details of what Kansas gave them to put that
Sure.
factory there. I mean, it's going to be a good long run for Texas, for Kansas. 4,000 good. And these should be good jobs too.
Yeah.
But it's often the winner when these states compete. I know Oklahoma was in the bidding for this also. The winner, is the state that just opened up the checkbook and said, what's it going to take to put your factory in our state? And then often the taxpayers are subsidizing having that the facility there.
Right.
It's interesting how all the states have realized that this is a once in a generation opportunity to move the balance of power away from where it's been for the last century in the US in terms of automaking and auto construction. And they're all seeing that opportunity to get their own little piece of it. It's interesting. It will decentralize in a way your car industry, because it'll put it across America. And often they also often will supply land as well, not just the tax breaks as well, but they'll be like, right, well, we own this big parcel of land and you can have it, and all those kind of things. So it's really interesting.
Speaking of land and incentives and everything, my favorite Vietnamese automaker, Vinfast, we have a little article up today.
Great.
That says they got 1.2 billion in incentives from North Carolina, where they're going to build a huge, auto manufacturing plant and I believe battery plant. And they've just yesterday they opened 6 stores in California. So if you want to see what the VinFast vehicles look like up close, you can look them up. We have the article up on Inside EVs this morning. I'm just looking real quick. They're going to have 30, I believe they want 30 stores by the end of the year. So there should be pretty easy to find, well, especially in California. So if you go Santa Monica, San Mateo, San Diego, Commerce, Berkeley, and Corte Madera. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Corte Madera. Those are all stores that opened yesterday, and you can go check out the VinFast VF8 and maybe VF9 in there. And right. So let's talk about what we've been driving, because this has been a good week for driving, especially for some of us in the I don't know what you call this, driver's paradise. What do you call Nurburgring? It's like,
yeah, Nurburgring is definitely driver's paradise, I would say.
Best known and most interesting kind of track in the world. I don't know. Give us
It's the best track in the world. It's the longest track in the world. It's probably the most well-known track in the world. It's the most demanding track in the world. It's amazing.
And it's not necessarily safe either. The people drive it. So tell us about, we have a story up and you have a video up, and it's a great video. Actually, if you haven't seen it, I recommend you watch this. Lightly modified Volkswagen e-up takes to Nurburgring. So you took an Volkswagen e-up, which is like the subcompact, cheap electric vehicle that Volkswagen. Do they still make them? They started remaking them again.
Production, and they are making them still.
Right. So this has got a few mods on it. It looks like it's lowered. That's on KWs, I think, and some cool looking wheels. So how was it on the Nurburgring? Like, how fast could you go? And
well, I drove a ton of cars just this week. I mean, we've done videos at the Nurburgring for a while now, and went back and filmed another half day full of cars. And this was the highlight, and it's the first video that goes up, but we'll have others coming soon that we'll talk about later on. We took a Model 3 around the Nurburgring that was very interesting, an LFP car. So we have some stuff to talk about with suspension in that, and motor and battery temperatures, and that really good, actually, how long you can drive that. This, the e-up, this is actually Jordan's first Nurburgring lap. in the back of the E-Up. We went out once before we shot this. And so that's a great car for your intro to Nurburgring. And it's called Touristenfahrt, and anyone can show up in any street legal car and take it for a lap. And just like some of the sections on Autobahns, it's fully de-restricted except for like a half a mile section of the track, and you just kind of take it a little bit easy. But the rest of the 12 miles or however long it is, you're wide open, full racetrack speeds if you want to be. And we gave the E-Up everything it had inside of it, and it passed a few cars to our surprise, and even some race prep stuff, which was pretty great. So we had an absolute blast in the Volkswagen E-Up. And yeah, things just it's an angry dog underneath that's trying to rip around the track. It was wonderful.
How would you? It's a momentum car, right?
Well, basically, you just keep it floored the entire time, and then you just stab the brakes for a half a second if you need to shave some speed, and then it's back to wide open. But it was power limiting. We were thermal limiting. We could barely even make it up one of the hills. It was hilarious, but you could see big smiles inside, and it was just the most fun thing you could ever do. Is slow car fast on the world's best racetrack.
Right. What is the top speed of the E-Up?
137 kilometers per hour. I don't know what that is in miles.
I think it's like 95. I'm not sure.
No, it's a little bit less.
than
I think it's
95.
right around 80s, somewhere around there.
It's like 80, 85, 88. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. But you still manage to pass cars, so that's saying something.
Yeah, well, you just keep it pinned in the corners. It weighs nothing. So the big cars will hammer down the straights, and then you just come flying up partially on two wheels behind them. And it's just, it's an amazing rocket ship through the corners. Like in the tight sections of the track, this was keeping up with 911s, with a whole bunch of stuff. As soon as it would open up, no chance.
Hey, cool. And so I'm looking forward to seeing more Nurburgring action from you. And you had electric vehicles on Nurburgring, right?
Yes, so we took an iWays around the Nurburgring and some other stuff that you'll see videos on. The Tesla Model 3 was probably the most interesting because we had 5 people in the Model 3 and we were full sending it around the track, which was great. Interestingly, the Model 3 on the standard aero wheels here in Europe come on the Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tires, unlike the Michelin MXM 4 tires that we get in the US. So a significant upgrade in grip levels on just the base car. This one was $39,000. It had no options, totally base LFP, standard plus, and made it all the way around almost to I'd say the last 20% of the track before it started to thermal limit on us. And it did probably 10 laps that day. It just got hammered around. The brakes were terrible. We overheated those. It kept blinking on the screen. Your brakes are going to catch on fire, all this stuff. You just manage that. That's the biggest problem with the car. But we would actually bottom it out. So like even when we were loaded up into corners, we were scraping the thing. And I was like, oh man, what happened to the days where Model 3 was like the performance car? It's gotten so soft.
Well, you had 5 people in it, right?
Yeah, we had 5 people in it, but we could get in any Model 3 2 years ago with 5 people hammered around anywhere, and you'd never bottom out a car. I've never really seen this. And so we have some photos that will be in literally going around the carousel, and you can just look at the thing scraping the road. It's pretty wild.
I wonder if the LFP means are like a lot heavier. I wonder if there's like a weight penalty to those as well.
We meant to look at the payload sticker. It's my friend's car. I can ask him to check, but Model 3 has a really low payload capacity in the US anyway. I want to say it's 830 pounds or so. Like it's like enough for people, but not their luggage. Same with Model S. But I would say we were within the US, payload capacity. It's a 5-seater car. We had no luggage inside. It should be able to go around the track without bottoming out. A couple sections, there's like a little jump on the backside of the track, and we had all 4 off the ground. And when we came down, it was bam! It was pretty wild.
Right on. So you also got to check out an electric truck this week that I thought was a great video. And this is like a short range electric truck, and it's owned by Magna. Did they build it? Actually,
yes.
It's
so
like
Magna
a custom built truck, right?
Yeah, Magna commissioned 2 of them.
Okay. So this is pretty cool. So it's an electric, it's a box truck. Basically, they shortened it somewhat just for their purposes, so it would fit inside. It backs up. It takes Jaguar I-Pace bodies in white from one building to the other, like in the production. It's part of the production line, right? It's 2 separate buildings.
Yeah, it's a moving part of the I-Pace production line because I-Pace isn't the most high volume vehicle. It actually works for their production throughput.
Right. So they put like 2, I think, at a time inside this thing.
Oh, I think it was 3 we
Three?
could squeeze in there. Yeah,
Okay.
3
Okay.
of them.
And is there a conveyor belt system inside the truck as well?
Yes, so it actually
Okay.
hooks. So the way it works is you back the truck and trailer. It's got 60 kilowatt hour battery pack. It goes 2 kilometers and then charges, and then it goes another,
Right.
or I should say, it goes 1 kilometer and charges, and then another kilometer and charges. So short range trucks have their purpose, and you
Right.
back it up to the I-Pace production line, and it spins the conveyor in the truck, and they load in. It's so cool.
And actually, the whole charging part is also integrated into what it's doing. So when the truck backs up into the loading dock, into the loading bay, it's plugging itself in. It's got these like metal slots on the bottom that slide into a connector. It's kind of a bizarre setup. I've never seen anything like it.
Apparently, it can do 33 kilowatt AC charging.
Really?
Yeah, but then they run it through a Type 2 cable, which is only rated for 22. So I think it's only doing 22, but I think
Okay.
the system's capable of 33. This was my only question about the whole thing. It's a pretty geeky video, but I just thought it was neat to see. You know, Magna has been a sponsor for Out of Spec for a while. And so, you know, we're over here and we're able to film some really interesting videos with them, sort of behind the scenes stuff that no one gets to film.
Yeah,
And
you
so
get
it's a
good
perfect
access. Yeah.
partnership for us. And we got to basically take this this e-truck, and I got to literally go pick up some I-Paces. We backed it in, and then we pulled them over and brought them over to the paint shop. It was really a fascinating experience.
Right on. So anything else we want to talk about that you've been doing this week, Kyle? Anything else you want to mention?
Well, I drove the Renault Megane E-Tech. I figured I'd talk about it on the
Oh,
podcast because this is kind of a hot new-ish electric car here in Europe. You know, Renault's been known for building some of the most popular EVs and arguably the best car in the world, the Renault Twizy. So they really have a high bar set coming into with this Megane E-Tech. And I would say it's not quite as good as the Twizy. So I think it's a little bit of a failure in this regard. But in every other way, this is one hell of a nice car. You have to get it. So it's built on the Nissan Ariya platform. It's CFM EV, I think. Something like that. CMF EV. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yep.
Okay. So it's built on this chassis, front wheel drive only. The Max Megane E-Tech is the base Ariya. So I drove that Max one, which is the standard Ariya. And it was nice, soft, comfortable, as you would expect from a French car. They're always soft. You know, you would think like weird interior, but actually not. It had one of the best UIs of any car I've been in. Fully Google run, by the way. So very similar to Polestar, instant route planning. Very comfortable at 170 kilometers per hour on the Autobahn. That's its max speed, 168, something like that. And good driver assistance, really good driver assistance, amazing looks. And then the price tag isn't bad. So I'm pretty impressed with this car all around. The styling looks like a concept car for the road. It's really nice.
Yeah. Looks like a Chevy Bolt, doesn't it?
Not even close.
No,
what are you talking about?
I'm just kidding. I mean, it's like a high, I don't know, a hatchback. So it's
I would say they call it a crossover. It's definitely like a bit of a bigger hatchback, but just the big wheels make the whole thing.
Yeah. There's like 22s on that. We're looking at a picture Martin's pulled up put on the screen.
20s. We drove that car and it was on 20s.
Okay.
Yep.
Which are still huge on a smaller mid-sized car, you think?
Yeah, and so I fit in the back seat of it. It's a smaller car. It's a shrunken Ariya. And so it's more of a city version. They actually at launch had a version without DC fast charging and only with 7 kilowatt AC charging. They actually ended up nixing that, at least for the German market, and they're only selling the higher trims. But 22 kilowatt as standard AC charging. It will do 85 kilowatt charging on the 40 kilowatt hour pack, which isn't great. And it'll do 135 kilowatt charging on the 60 kilowatt hour pack, which is right in line with ID4 and ID3. So I would say not class leading in terms of charging, not class leading in terms of range, but perhaps class leading in terms of city use for one of these because of that 22 kilowatt AC charging. There's a lot of 22 kilowatt posts in France and Germany, and you won't really need as many DC fast chargers with that.
And that gives you a fair amount of range pretty quickly. You know, if you can plug into one of those for like half an hour, you're good.
Oh,
most likely.
Well, the
absolutely. Yeah.
Zoe
most
has
they
the
should
same
driving.
22
Yeah,
kilowatt
yeah.
AC.
Both
Yeah.
both my Zoes have had 22 kilowatt AC, and it is surprisingly useful, to be honest. When you've got some decent AC charging around,
Right.
you're shopping, sort of social activities, anything that's like half an hour that you're gonna, any chores that you're gonna go and do, and you come back, and especially on the Zoe, and the car is full. But on this is the real sweet spot because it's 60 kilowatt hour usable, and that is for the average family that might load up maybe with a roof box or just pile in for 1 or 2 big holidays a year. But otherwise, it's a family car that doesn't go very far. It's a real sweet spot. Why carry around a massive battery when you don't need it? Renault's always going to be a little bit cheaper than its competitors anyway. The UK spec, I mentioned this before, the UK spec has a little small Diddy screen, and Renault PR won't tell me the official reason. I suspect it was a design mistake, because the one that Kyle has driven has got a really big, beautiful, really nice portrait screen. It's like the big, Model S, Model X screen. It's nice, and but the UK one has a tiny one, which is a problem. But don't let that put you off. It's still good, but it's still like, come on. They moved the steering wheel to the other side. It was like, we can't fit the big screen in anyway. It's but bang for buck. It's just about the best out there. Yeah,
I
completely
really
agree.
loved it. I'd recommend it to anyone who lives in an urban environment, especially here in Europe, where you're traveling maybe 200-300 kilometers instead of 200-300 miles between cities. It's a great option. I actually really liked it, and I was like, wow, I'd be happy to drive this every day. Brake pedal was weird, but you'll get all that nerdy stuff in the video.
Is that video coming out this week?
I don't know. I think we have like so many videos shot that we kind of have to blend this, so it'll go up at some point.
I think you just need to, subscribe to Out of Spec Reviews or what's it? Out of Spec Motoring. Out of Spec Reviews. This goes on, right? Generally.
Yeah. So the review goes on reviews, and then we have some road trips that'll go on the motoring stuff coming up.
Right. So yeah, just subscribing because you're pumping out the content like crazy over there. You guys, I don't know when you're even sleeping. So
Not
Tom,
much sleep. No.
Tom, finally get to find out what's going on with you and your Ford F-150 Lightning pickup truck. You did a range test this week in that, and also the EVC EV6 GT. So let's talk about those. But start with the truck.
Yeah. So 2 weeks of ownership now. Still loving it. Did the 70 mile an hour range test with it, and I was super anxious to see where it came out for a number of reasons, but I also wanted to see how it shaped up to Kyle's, because Kyle did the 70 mile an hour range test with a Platinum, and the Platinum has the 22-inch wheels. I have a Lariat, which is has 20-inch wheels, so same size battery. The Platinum weighs a little bit more. It's got bigger wheels, so I really was curious to see where it came in at, and I think pretty much what I expected. I finished up with 270 miles. I pulled off the highway, kind of ended the 70 mile an hour portion at 268. So I only drove about 1.5 miles, 2 miles once it was done, and I was already beyond the zero, the state of charge 0, and I got the warning that said, battery fully depleted, pull over. And after watching Kyle's video where he came up a little short and had to push it, I said, I'm not doing that, because number one, I don't have anybody here to help me, and it's my personal truck, so I'd rather not just totally run it down to nothing. So I'm glad that I had Kyle's video out there to watch how it behaves after it hits 0 and about how far you can go. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that. So I probably could have gotten actually 4 or 5 more miles if I had just run it down to nothing till it wouldn't move anymore. But hey, 270, in my opinion, is great for this big truck at 70 miles an hour highway speed. I'm super happy with it. EPA highway is 283, so I didn't really match that. But as we say, the EPA, the highway ratings and the city ratings, they don't run them at constant speeds. They go up and down, and it's a totally different test protocol. And that's why we do these 70 mile an hour range tests, to give people an idea of, okay, you get on the highway, you set that cruise to 70 miles an hour. This is about how far you can go if you have similar conditions as to what we experience. Obviously, I'm going to do this again in the winter, maybe when it's, around 0 in January, and dead cold. I'll have winter tires on it at the time too. I'm definitely going to put winter tires on this thing because I have all terrain now, and or all season, not all terrain. and we'll repeat it, and we'll see how it does in the winter. I'm thinking right now maybe 220-ish, in the dead of winter, but
Yeah.
we'll see. For me, that's a great driving range for me for such a big 6,600 pound, full size pickup truck. I'm totally happy with that.
Right on. Yeah,
So
275 miles. What size tires you say were on this one?
So I have the 20-inch wheels with, I think, the 275. I forget the exact size. We go so many different vehicles road testing. I don't want to quote the
Sure.
exact size, but it's the standard 20-inch tires that come on the Lightning. Use Blue Cruise for the whole trip. The Ford's hands-free Blue Cruise work great. The funny thing is, I do check-ins at 25, 75%, 50%, 75%. I forgot to mention until the last check-in that I had the hands-free Blue Cruise on. So it's funny, as people are watching the video, they're commenting like, Tom, like, put your hands on the wheel, because as I'm driving earlier, you'll see me with my hands. I'm waving my hands and everything as I'm talking, but it was because I had the hands-free Blue Cruise on, which worked great for this trip. I wish it gave me a little bit more leeway, like if it notices that your eyes aren't on the road pretty quickly, it alerts you to, hey, watch the road, which is a good thing, because people like say the vehicles, say Tesla vehicles that don't have driver monitoring, we've seen people do really stupid things. But I wish it just gave me a little. I wish it wasn't quite as sensitive as what it is. And it's pretty interesting. You see, I have my sunglasses on there. Even with my sunglasses on, I tested it out. I'm driving with the Blue Cruise on, and I'm like, okay, it can't see my eyes. So I close my eyes behind the sunglasses,
Right.
and it sees them. And in like 4 or 5 seconds, it starts alerting, like, keep your eyes on the road. So that was pretty cool. But
Right
yeah,
on.
no, it did well, and I'm having a great time with it. The funny thing is, I've had 2 people walk up to me already and offer to buy it from me. And the one person, I think, kind of said it like almost jokingly, like, oh, will you sell it to me? And how do you like it? But then yesterday I'm at Lowe's. I'm picking up wood because I'm renovating my basement. And I come out, I'm wheeling my cart out, and there's someone standing next to it, and they're walking around it and everything. And he's like, dude, he goes, how did you get one of these? And I told him, I reserved it early on. He's like, what do you want for it? And I was like, I laughed. I'm not selling it. And he goes, I'm serious. He goes, what do you want for it? And I said, I'm not selling. He said, I'll give you 110,000 right now. And he was looking at me dead serious.
Oh my God.
And I smiled.
Wow.
I said, listen, buddy, I go, I do, this is my, I actually am a journalist, and I make videos. I said, I can't sell it. I have, I'm going to make more money than that on it. And he's like, just humor me. Name, what would it take for you to sell it to me? And I could tell that this guy was dressed nicely. Like, he wasn't bluffing. This guy, he was ready to write a check. He goes, I called every dealership. He goes, I've been all over the place. He goes, I got one dealer that told me if I give them a deposit now, they can get me a truck in 2023. I said, the dealer's lying to you. I said, they these are sold out through 2023 unless they steal one from a customer, and he's like, yeah, I kind of thought that. I think they just wanted to sit on my money. He goes, I'm going to keep looking. He goes, but he goes, look, he goes, if you want to take my card, if you want to sell it, he goes, I'll just cut you a check and be done with it. I'm like, no, I appreciate that, but thanks. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, really enjoying it so far. It's everything I wanted it to be. It's a great truck. Ford, in my opinion, Ford nailed it. They made, like the work truck electric, and it fits right in. I mean, people say, well, you've got the Hummer EV pickup, you've got the Rivian, you've got the Lightning. They're all completely different vehicles with totally different personalities. And this is the work truck. This is the everyday get out, work with it, not the adventure vehicle. Of course, you could take it off road and do things like that for it. But if you really want to do that, if you want to, go fishing all the time and overlanding, get a Rivian. But this thing is just amazing. It does everything that I could want it to do. Now, I know the towing, and that's the funny thing is, everybody that talks about it like immediately just says, yeah, but you can't tow with it. And yeah, it's not going to be nearly as good at towing as a gas or diesel vehicle. it can tow anything I ever needed towing with this. If I wanted to, I could, because what I would want to tow is a boat to like the Jersey Shore, and this could do that. So,
Right.
you know, would it tow the boat to Florida from here? No, it would be a huge hassle. You know, you have to use the right tool for the job, and I feel like people are taking like the one use case that it's not great at and saying, oh, but that just makes the truck suck. And it does for people that need that use case. But, you know, there was this giant survey I was reading the other day in 2021. They surveyed over 250,000 full-size pickup truck owners in the US, and less than 33% of them tow more than once a year. Now, the people that tow a lot and tow all the time. Don't get this. But, you know, the regular person that maybe once a year needs to tow something, or, you know, this would work just fine for most of those people, in my opinion.
Right. If you're only towing maybe like max at 80 miles or something, it's doable as well, right? But
well, it depends what size trailer. Yeah, if it's a small trailer, like, you know, friend of mine's got a house in upstate New York. He's got a little trailer that he brings stuff back and forth between houses. It's a small trailer. The profile isn't even higher than the bed of the truck, and he's only towing a couple 100 pounds when he does. That would, you know, he'd be able to use this to do that without a problem. Yeah, you get into trouble when that profile of the trailer is way up above the truck, and you're getting aero, as well as, you know, you've got 5, 6, 7, 8,000 pounds in it. I mean, Kyle could talk a lot more about towing than what I can, but, you know, this can tow depending on what you need to tow and where you need to tow it. You know, it's not, you know, it's just, I think. And I've said this about EVs dating back, you know, for 10 years. People find reasons why it won't work for them. You know, I remember people telling me when I had my EV, you know, 10 years ago, like, yeah, but what happens if I get home? I just drove 70 or 80 miles and I get home and there's immediately a problem. My wife needs to go to the hospital. Like she'll die, you know, if I can't, you know, I can't plug it in and wait an hour for first we call a freaking ambulance if your wife needs to go to the hospital.
Right.
And you know what? If there's no ambulance, you know, you run next door to your neighbor and you say, hey, Dom, I got an emergency. I need to take, you know, like, people just find reasons why things won't work for them.
Right.
But for me, so far, it's been awesome. And I'm super happy. I've just been, every time I charge it now, what I'm doing is, I'm recording every charging session I make. I'm not even charging it at home. I'm charging it on DC fast chargers every time I charge it. And because I want to get about 20 recordings of that. I want to do 10 to 80 0 to 80% on a 150 and then on a 350 kilowatt, 10 to 80% on those two, 20 to 80% on those two, 30 to 80%, 40 to 80%, 50 to 80%. This is going to take me a couple of months to get this video, but I'm going to have like 20 charging sessions recorded and really be able to map out. So if you come in and you plug in at 35%, you want to go to 80, or you come in at 25%, you want to go to 80. But this video is going to be like, there's going to be like 100 hours of work into it, but I want it to be
do you
like.
Want to explain why that's only unique to Ford EVs? Because you don't need to do that. We don't need to do that for any other product except Ford vehicles.
Yeah. So as Kyle mentioned, when Kyle was able to do the charge recording before I would, Ford has this, like, they call it the boost.
Well, I called it that, but I don't know what they call it.
Yeah, it's like the boost. Kyle called it like this boost profile, which means when you plug it in, you get all the power it can give you for a couple of minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. And it doesn't matter if you plug it in at 5% or 10% or 20%. Now, there's going to be a point at which that won't happen, Kyle, which is what I'm hoping to find. Normally, with all the EVs that we test, you know, the charging profile is directly related to state of charge. So if you're at 35% state of charge, you're going to get 150 kilowatt. Even if you plugged in at 0, by the time it gets you to 35%, it's at that kilowatt power, unless it's thermal limiting. It can be lower, but it wouldn't be higher. But with Ford, it's different. Like, and that's one of the things that I think confused our followers. When we were on the press drive, I went and did a charge recording and I plugged in and I got a certain amount of power. But then Kyle plugged in after I did, and he plugged in at a higher percent state of charge, and he got a higher power than what I was pulling at that state of charge, because mine was already ramping down. And people were like, Tom, like, you know, I think you need to check this out because Kyle was pulling more power at 60% than you were. I think your car was thermal limiting or whatever. Like, the charging car is going to be different. But now we've figured out that's the case, is because unlike the other vehicles, when you plug in, Ford gives you all it could take for a certain period of time, which is actually pretty good if you're on a road trip and you only want to stay for, 15 or 20 minutes. Even if you're at 50% state of charge and you plug in, bang, you're getting like more than 150 kilowatt. And unplug. It doesn't make, it doesn't make a huge difference if you're there for the whole. If you're going to charge for a long period of time, then this boost policy doesn't really make much of a difference. But it does make a difference if you just want to stay for 20 minutes. If you just want to get a quick shot, push it up, even if you're at a higher state of charge, you're going to get all the power that truck can take. So,
and I presume
that's pretty cool.
Nothing to stop you if you particularly wanted to be this person. As soon as it starts to taper down from that boost, stop, unplug, replug, get the boost, stop, unplug, replug, get the boost.
That was the Mach-E trick.
Right. That's not going to fry the contactors, or that's not going to kill the car. Okay.
Yeah, it might.
I'm going to play around with that a little bit.
Okay. Well, don't kill your car. So your truck.
Well, that's why I said a little bit. I'm going to play around with that.
Okay.
So Tom, you also did a highway range test with the Kia EV6 GT line. Real quick, we want to wrap up pretty soon, but
sure.
How'd that go?
We ended up with 245, 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour, which is pretty good. The EPA range rating is 274 on that, but I had the 20-inch optional wheels on it. And the EPA range rating is with the 19-inch wheels. So these are the sportier, wider, more aggressive tires. And so, to me, 245 was pretty good at a constant 70 miles an hour. We don't have the highway EPA range rating for that because it wasn't broken out. Either the EPA decided not to publish it or Kia didn't provide it to the EPA. I don't know if they have to break it out. But what kind of is disappointing is we used to always get the combined, the city and the highway for all the cars. But now it started about 6 or 7 months ago. When the EPA is publishing the data, they stopped publishing it like the city and highway, and only are publishing the combined for some vehicles. Like for my Lightning, they publish both, which was great. It's my Lightning's 320 combined, 350 city, and 283 for highway. So and I tell you, with that 350, I believe it because just driving around town here and just doing city runs back and forth, I'm averaging 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. And the first time I drove the vehicle down to zero, I drove it. It was charged from, I think, 90%, and I drove it down to zero, and I got like 294 or 5 miles, and that's at 90%. So it's at slower speeds, it's not terribly efficient for a big, heavy truck.
Kia EV6 looks great in those big wheels. It looks like it could be lowered a little bit. I wonder if you could improve your range if you actually like put a set of stops, swapped out some KWs on it or something. You could bring it down. Like it looks like
my friend Ahmad just lowered his, and it looks really nice.
Oh yeah, who did? Sorry,
my friend Ahmad. He's done some out of spec motoring videos with us.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like it could just use a little bit. Did he see any range improvements with that?
No, he put big wheels on it too, so it's not. You're not going to see a major range increase by that. It's not going to hurt your range.
No, but it'll make it look better. I mean, I don't know. It's aesthetic, so that's everyone has a different opinion about that. What are we looking at here, Martin?
Oh, this is just the efficiency. I was looking at Tom's table of the Kia EV6, and it was just nailed at 3.3 miles a kilowatt hour for the whole test. And again, it could be a little better.
At 70 miles an hour, yeah, it's not too bad, but it's still like it's still a crossover. It's still,
yeah, I guess so.
Relatively high.
It's not terrible. Yeah.
3.3 is all right. All right, so I think that should be about it for the show. I think we want to wrap it up early, and so that brings us to the end of our show. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on the Inside EV's forum podcast thread or on our YouTube or Twitch comment sections. If you like the show, please give us a thumbs up. If you're watching us on YouTube, let us know if you like this doing a news first thing rather than what we've been driving. We try to tighten up the show a little bit. So yeah, don't forget you can find and follow our panelists on Twitter. Follow Tom Mologney at Tomolog. That's with 2 M's. Martin Lee is at EV News Daily. Kyle Connor is at It's Kyle Connor. And I'm at Dominic_Y. Click subscribe and tap that bell icon for notifications. And we'll see you all again next week. Ciao.